The Aorus 17 is Gigabyte's new high-end gaming laptop, featuring an 8-core overclocked CPU and RTX 2080 graphics. So let's check out how well this beast performs in 20 different games at all setting levels, and see how it compares with some other gaming laptops. I've got the highest spec version of the Aorus 17, which includes 8-core overclockable i9-9980HK CPU, 200W Nvidia RTX 2080 graphics, 17.3-inch 1080p 240Hz screen, and 32GB of memory and dual channel. You can find other configurations and updated prices linked in the description. The Aorus Control Center software allows us to either run with the Intel graphics using Optimus, or instead using the Nvidia GPU only, which should boost performance. I've tested all games without Optimus for best results. The Control Center software also lets us pick between 6 different CPU power levels and 2 for the GPU. I didn't find these modes to apply any overclocking to either the CPU or GPU. However, by default, all 8 cores were already overclocked to 5 GHz. Otherwise, I just found the CPU options to adjust max power limit. I've used the highest settings for best performance along with max fan speed. We're only covering gaming performance here, so if you're new to the channel, you'll definitely want to get subscribed for the thermal testing and full review videos where I'll cover everything. We'll start off by going through all 20 games at all setting levels, then afterwards we'll see how the Aorus 17 compares with some other laptops. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode. I've got RTX on shown by the green bars and RTX off shown by the purple bars. It's pretty rare for us to see a good playable frame rate with RTX on at ultra settings in this test, but the 2080 is able to average 60 FPS here, which is a good result. With RTX off though, even the 1% low at ultra settings was higher than the average with RTX on, so much higher performance is possible without it. Control was tested by running through the start of the game, and again I've tested both RTX on in green and RTX off in purple. Despite using the highest RTX settings available, it was still pretty playable, with medium settings almost averaging 60 FPS. Although RTX does actually look quite nice in this game, I found the higher FPS from RTX off much better when getting into fights. Borderlands 3 was tested using the game's built-in benchmark tool, and out of the laptops I've tested so far, generally it's quite hard to hit above 60 FPS with max settings in this test, but the Aorus 17 is achieving it flawlessly. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. Over 200 FPS was being hit at minimum settings, while even maxed out it was still playing extremely smoothly. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark, and these are some of the best results I've ever seen from this test, but we'll compare this title and more against some other laptops later. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was also tested with the benchmark tool, and even very high settings was averaging above 100 FPS, which is a great result for this title. Even the highest ultimate preset was offering playable performance. Far Cry New Dawn was tested with the built-in benchmark. The results with this test don't tend to change too much with higher hardware, so while not appearing impressive, the results are fair for this title. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and as a less demanding game, even epic settings was scoring great results. Given we've got a 240Hz screen, we can actually put it to use quite well with the high setting preset, though low settings was scoring close to the screen's refresh rate for the 1% low, which is very impressive. Overwatch is another well-optimized game and was tested in the practice range. Again, even with the highest epic setting preset, we can utilize the 240Hz panel quite well, with high settings and below hitting the 300 FPS frame cap and achieving 1% lows that hit the screen's refresh rate. CSGO was tested using the Uletical FPS benchmark, and as a game that depends primarily on CPU power, the results are a nice step up over the 9750H laptops that I usually test, as we're hitting higher clock speeds here. Even max settings was scoring average FPS higher than the refresh rate of the screen, with over 100 FPS for the 1% lows. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane, and as another primarily CPU-heavy game, the results are some of the best I've ever seen from a laptop. To be fair though, they're not really that much higher than an i7-based laptop with lower tier graphics, so there's definitely diminishing returns at play for this game. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark. Even the maximum ultra setting preset was able to hit 140 FPS for the 1% low, and that's with a 100% render scale. So another game that should play very nicely on this machine. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case. The Division 2 was also tested with the built-in benchmark. Again, impressive results. Scoring over 100 FPS at the max setting preset isn't an easy task in this test, and almost 200 was hit at low settings. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and the results were a little lower than I expected, considering I've tested a few i7 based laptops lately that could hit 150 FPS at low settings. Regardless, the results are still quite good here, especially with ultra settings. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the built-in benchmark, and as this is more of a CPU demanding test, the results here are quite good thanks to the overclocked 8-core CPU. Even with this top tier hardware, we're only just able to get above 60 FPS maxed out, though to be fair, it doesn't need super high FPS to play. Plus, much higher was achievable with lower settings. Watch Dogs 2 is a resource-heavy game, but I think it still plays fine with a stable 30 FPS. So considering we're smashing this at ultra settings, it's playing very well without any issues whatsoever. The Witcher 3 was playing well even with ultra settings, despite it being a step down in FPS compared to high settings and below. 120 FPS for the averages is plenty for this title, so no issues running it maxed out on the Aorus 17 with these specs. F1 2019 was tested using the game's benchmark tool, and it's a similar story to The Witcher 3 in the sense that the highest setting preset was a fair step back compared to the others, but realistically the performance is still great anyway. Strange Brigade was tested with Vulkan using the game's benchmark tool. This test generally runs very well on any modern hardware, so when combined with these top-end specs, we're getting extra high results. Let's also take a look at how this config of the Aorus 17 gaming laptop compares with other laptops. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. I've tested Battlefield 5 with ultra settings, and I've got the Aorus 17 highlighted in red near similarly spec'd machines. In this test, it's well above most of the machines I've tested, and closer to the other high-spec laptops that also have the 2080. The Asus mothership actually has the same CPU and GPU, however the mothership is doing better as the cooling there is next level. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. Again, the Aorus 17 is ahead of most laptops tested due to the high-end specs. And it's not too far below the other high-end machines that I've covered on the channel in the past. I guess it really goes to show what the 200W RTX 2080 can do in a laptop. Here are the results from Far Cry 5 with ultra settings in the built-in benchmark. This time the results from the Aorus 17 were much lower compared to those other three machines ahead of it. I'm not exactly sure what the issue was, but I triple checked the results, and while it is still a good result, it's more in line with the other lower spec laptops. As expected, the gaming performance from the Aorus 17 in this highest YA configuration is performing extremely well. The 200W RTX 2080 puts it on an entirely different level when compared to even expensive 2080 Max-Q laptops. The specs are actually good enough to take advantage of the 240Hz screen in many cases. Granted, this is typically with more esports titles, but not being limited to minimum settings to surpass 200 FPS was nice. There are definitely some compromises to be made with a machine like this, mainly in terms of size, battery life, portability, and price. Although it's closer to the desktop replacement side than laptop, I found the Aorus 17 more portable than the Asus mothership, MSI GT76, or Alienware 51M. Don't get me wrong, it's still thick. But yeah, it didn't seem quite as bad in that regard while still offering high levels of performance. I'll be testing thermal performance in the next detailed video, so if you're new to the channel, consider getting subscribed for that as well as for future tech videos like this one.